Welcome back to another episode of Profitable Publishing. Today we're going to be talking about really understanding the question that I get all the time of, is my book good enough? And so I'm Ashley. I'm a 5-time author, book marketing strategist, and self-publishing consultant, and I support coaches, consultants, speakers, and service providers to be able to package their expertise into a profitable book that builds their brand. Now, I wanted to address this because this is actually a question that I would get all the time when I first started out supporting authors with publishing their books. They would come to me and they would say, okay, can you read my manuscript? Is my book good enough? And my first thought is, okay, whoa, please stop sending your manuscript to people who you have just met. I'm glad that you think that I'm trustworthy enough to hold it with care, which of course I did. However, that was just kind of my first thing. But then also I really thought about, okay, where is this notion coming from where your book has to be quote unquote good enough? And so obviously it goes back to traditional publishing. People have the idea that, okay, even if I'm self-publishing, even if I'm indie publishing, even if I'm hybrid publishing, that I have to get some level of approval. I have to get somebody else to validate me, or I have to basically make sure that like this is good enough for folks. And there is some validity in that. You should be having people such as beta readers, an editor, developmental editor, to read your book before you publish it. Totally agree with that. But the concept that you have to get that validation from a publisher when you are doing indie publishing or self-publishing consultancy, which is what I focus on, to me is a bit flawed, because if you are someone who is a service provider, or if you're a coach, if you're a consultant, if you're a speaker, then you already have certain things in place that already should tell you that the ideas that you're going to put inside of your book are good ideas. And we'll talk about those in just a bit. And so when it comes to thinking about, okay, is this something that readers are going to love? Is this something that people are going to actually recommend again and again? Then you, of course, want to do certain things when you are creating your book and not just when you are talking about marketing and publishing it. And so I actually go over some of these in episode 10, where I talk about different things you can put inside of your book to help readers actually complete the book, because most people don't actually finish the books that they decide to read or that they decide to buy. But going back to the idea of, okay, is this good enough? Are people actually going to buy my book? So let's unpack that a bit. When it comes to the world of traditional publishing, which can heavily influence indie publishing, hybrid publishing, and self-publishing, if I were to go that route, then I would be asking an agent to pick me up. I would be asking someone else to accept me. And when it comes to doing these alternative options, and not alternative in a lesser way, because self-publishing is a valid form of publishing, independent publishing is a valid form of publishing, so is hybrid publishing. We are sometimes still indoctrinated into the ways of traditional publishing because it's something that, of course, really affects the overall publishing industry. And so you may be hearing like murmurings or different things from people who are traditionally published where they're talking about aspects of, okay, well, I got turned down by this agent, or they referred me to a different agent, and you don't really have to worry about those things as an indie self-published hybrid you would, but for an indie published or an independently published author, because you get to control whether or not your book gets out. That's one of the beautiful things, is that you don't have gatekeeping. You don't have someone saying, hey, this is not good enough. You're not going to be able to do this because of XYZ. Now, when people come to me, I do consider, okay, are they a good fit for my company in terms of the type of book they're releasing? Is this somebody I can help? Is this a topic that I'm knowledgeable about, especially if I'm doing their marketing as well? And so there is a little bit of that. However, in terms of whether or not it's good enough, you get to control that narrative. Now, this also can be the reason why a lot of people feel like self-publishing isn't as quality as other types of publishing. But if you are someone who makes sure that you are producing a quality product, you're hiring help that you need to be able to get that done, then you don't have to worry about those types of things. But when it comes to seeing if your book is good enough, a few things you can do is to really consider, where have you used this content other places? Is this something you've used in a speech? Is this something that you've done in a workshop? And actually look at the feedback that you've gotten. Is this something that really resonated with your audience? Did you get a lot of comments? Did you get a lot of additional feedback? Did you follow up with attendees or follow up with people who had consumed that content where it was used in a different way? Because inside your book, it's going to consist of your frameworks, your strategies, your techniques. It's very unlikely that those things are only going to exist in your book and that you haven't used them other places. So really lean on that and see, where else have you actually talked about this, and how can can it be implemented in your book? And also, what feedback have you previously gotten? And then, of course, you want to use beta readers. And so those are people who read your book before it's completed. And there are also alpha readers who read it earlier on. However, beta readers are typically going to get a free copy of your book, whether it be electronic or print. And they're going to give you feedback on not the grammar, not the spelling, not the punctuation, that kind of stuff, but more so the content of the book. This really resonated with me. This felt out of place. This part didn't really make sense to me. Or I love this. I would love more of that. And so that's actually something I share in my book. I have a whole chapter on beta readers and just the power of how they can really affect change in your book and how they can really make it something where you might end up rewriting entire sections based on the feedback that you get from your beta readers. And with that, those people should be those who are very directly aligned to your ideal audience. You don't want to pick people who have no idea of the concept you're talking about. You want to be a little wary of picking people who are like friends and family, because those people are typically not your ideal reader. And then you hopefully also have a community of people who are inside your inner circle. They might be called biz besties or author buddies or whatever you may call them. And they can give you that feedback because they already know you. They might be somewhat familiar with the content, but just be mindful that they might sugarcoat things. So it really depends on who is inside of your circle. Now, another reason why you might be questioning if your book is good enough or if people actually read it is because you're also waiting a while to talk about it, or you're waiting a while to actually write it. And that can come from imposter syndrome, that can come from self-doubt. And so it's one of those things where it's a circle. So if you are doubting that your book is good enough, you're not going to finish writing it. If your book is already out and you're doubting if it's good enough, then you're not going to promote it. And so really making sure that you actually take these steps, whether it is re-releasing so that you can get those beta readers, or releasing a second edition, or doing this process before you release, connecting with someone like myself to be able to support you through that, is so helpful. And so that's actually something I do inside of my Profitable Publishing Partner service, is we take the time to really make sure your book is structured and set up in a way that encourages people to not only read it, recommend it, and also review it, because we know as authors, we got to get those reviews because it helps other people know that it's a good fit for them. And so if that's something you're interested in learning more about, then I encourage you to visit profitableselfpublishing.com/partner to either book a call or to sign up. And then you also want to think about what strategies and frameworks that you already have in place, because you are also going to be able to implement those into your book and your processes. You also want to remember that your content is not the problem. So it's not that you don't have a grasp on your knowledge or your area or your field of expertise. It's that you need a way to package that into a book. You need a way to package it into something that's succinct, that's concise, and that helps your reader to get a result. And so that's the tricky part, because you might be thinking, okay, if I include XYZ, then they won't want to sign up for my service. Or if I include XYZ, then they won't attend my workshop or training or whatever the case may be. But that's just, you have all of this information. So building upon what I just said, you have all this information, you have all these ideas, and really understanding that your book can only be so many pages and that you don't have to share every single detail, but you want to make it so that your reader is able to get some type of result, get some type of transformation, and not feel overwhelmed, but also feel like, okay, if I need the support, I can reach out to the author for the next step, or I can sign up for this next thing that follows this. In order to make sure you're really presenting something that supports your readers, that attracts your audience, that builds your authority, then you want to make sure you're structuring your book in a way that focuses on your reader and not necessarily focuses on you. And this is something that I find with authors at times, is that they can often be focused on, okay, me, but really your reader is the reason why you're writing the book. Your book is not for you. Your book is for the person who's reading it. And so you want to keep them at top of mind. And you also want to make sure you're not assuming certain things that they might expect. And that's where it is helpful to really know and understand your person. And I actually talk about this in episode 7 about how to find your reader and really understand where they are, where they hang out, what kind of things they like, what kind of things they don't like, what kind of things they might expect from you, and how you can best support them. And so when you are looking to get support for you for this type of work, there's a few things you want to look out for if you're hiring help. If you are, this could be anywhere from like an editor to a full service self-publishing consultant like myself, then there's a few things you want to look out for. So you want to make sure that the person you're working with actually gets results and not fake results and not AI results. You want to make sure they're getting actual results. And so in the world of people just out here lying on the internet, you want to make sure you really vet things. And so I'm a millennial. I am of the generation of where, okay, we had life before the internet and then we had life after the internet, and you probably had a similar experience, or maybe most of your life has happened before the internet. And you are someone who you understand, like, okay, back in the day when we had to research something, it was, okay, I'm going to the library. I got to use the computer that's there, or I have to use the card catalog. I got to go pull books off the shelf. So this is the time to put on your Olivia Benson hat, your detective, your Law and Order SVU hat, and make sure that you are actually looking and vetting at those results, because people are out here just scheming and scamming. And so you don't want to be one of the people who becomes a victim of that, especially in the publishing industry. And so then also you want to find somebody who gets results with their own books. So is this someone who actually has been where you have been? Do they understand the publishing process? Do they understand what it's actually like to be an author? Have they written books recently? Because things change. Are they actively honing their craft? Are they actively researching and looking at trends to be able to better support you? Because that can be one of the things that can hold you back, is that getting advice from someone who's done this decades ago, who hasn't actually taken the time to have a pulse of what's happening recently, is really something that can be detrimental. And then, do their processes align with yours? So do the things that they do, does it align with you? Does their personality align with you? Are they someone who you feel comfortable working with? Because if you're publishing a book with someone, you want to feel comfortable. You don't want to feel like, oh, I don't want to ask questions. Like, you were paying for a service. You want to make sure that it's something that aligns with you, that aligns with your book and with your goals, most importantly. And so, for example, for me, clients that come to me, they understand that I'm going to push you to generate profit before you publish, that your book should build your brand, that we are not going to be broke authors, that's not the goal here or the expectation, and that they can do it. That's generally the vibe that they get. They understand that they might get prayed over. They understand that I have an education background, and so I'm going to use those things to support them in the way that they learn best. And then in general, does their personality match yours? Are the vibes vibing? Like, do you have synergy between the two of you? Because you really want to make sure that it's a collaborative effort. Even if it's a done for you publishing situation, there are going to be certain things that they're going to need from you in order to accomplish that goal. And then, are they going to support you through the process? So are they going to help you when you have mistakes that happen, when there's glitches, when there's things of that sort? That's going to be someone who you want to walk alongside with you, because it could be something that's a 3-month process. It could be a 6-month process. It could be a year-long process, depending upon what's going on with you, your book, and on your journey. And so if you think that I'm the coach or consultant for you, then I encourage you to get more information or sign up for the Profitable Publishing Partner Service. And it's where I work alongside authors to support them with writing, publishing, and launching their books so that they can generate that income and also have something that builds their brand along with their existing offers so that they can build out their ecosystem. And so thank you again for listening today. We talked about, is your book really good enough? And so a few things I want to leave you with is that, yes, your book is good enough. It's just that you need the strategies and the tools to be able to create it in a way that is helpful to your readers. Thanks for listening. Stay profitable.